Good morning, and it's a privilege and a blessing to be with all of you. A farmer greeted Stalin at his potato farm outside of Moscow. And there was a big pomp and circumstance around the great visit, and the propaganda media trailed behind Stalin. And the farmer said, "Comrade Stalin, we have such good potatoes here, we can pile them up one on top of the other, it will reach to God." And Stalin looked at him and said, God doesn't exist. So the farmer said, exactly, and neither do any of the potatoes. When we look at our responsibility of providing food to all of God's creations, we need to remember in faith and religion and all the monotheistic faiths from the Bible, we are wardens to protect this planet and to serve all living beings. It says in the Bible, and we must say this in a blessing and a prayer after every meal, we say the Hebrew words, Hanoten lechem l'chol basar, Masbia l'chol chai ratzon, that God gives bread to every living being and he sustains all living beings. Obviously, God uses mortal man and woman to be his messengers on this planet. But we are reminded that we were created after the entire universe was created. All of the trees and the plants and everything that exists in the world, animals, even the mosquito, was created before man. And there's two ways to look at it. One way is to look at it to say, remember, you are inferior to the mosquito. The mosquito came before you. On the other hand, we are also the prince, because the banquet, the entire universe, was prepared for us to arrive. But imagine if we arrived at the banquet and we started taking all the delicious food and throwing it on the floor. We would be thrown out. We would be seen as crazy and replaced. God didn't give us a beautiful world to waste, to destroy. We are given everything in this world to optimize, to utilize, not only for ourselves, but for the sake of others. If we remember the story of Joseph in the Bible, he was the first agroeconomist teaching about the years of plenty and surplus and famine. But in the dream, it's a strange situation where there was the lean cows and the fat cows, the lean eats the fat at the same time on the beach. How can you have famine and surplus at the same time? And the rabbis explain is because even when there's a time of plenty and there's abundance of food, that's usually only in certain homes. There's always famine in someone else's home. And even when you have surplus, you need to be thinking about those in another house that do not have. And you have to take from what you have on your table and transfer it to someone else. Of course, we also have to save for the future and prepare and put grain storage. But the most important thing is, how do we make sure that we do not waste anything? We're allowed to use the abundance of this world, but we have no right to destroy anything in this world. And the same rule that we're not allowed to destroy food applies to hurting our bodies. And we think about if someone is about to commit suicide, heaven forbid, we don't scream at them. We go to them with compassion and love, and we'll spend hours, the police will talk someone who wants to jump off a bridge to walk off that path. If we see someone who wants to destroy the world, destroy food, we need to realize we need to talk them back from the danger of what they're doing. And that is when we go back to education of children. We have Oscar the Grouch. We can whip and scream, don't waste. But think about what's the opposite of the word waste. useful. We want to teach our children that every time they save food and we teach them, and in the old days, everyone talks about how their parents said, if you don't finish your food today, someone in Vietnam or in China or in India or in Africa doesn't have food. But that was in your head. Today, we can show children through many actual applications, websites. There's something called Kiva that we do with our children. Every few weeks, we have an app that we go on, kiva.org, and we find a family somewhere in the developing world that they need supplies, food, pots and pans, and we give them money that we collected every day at our meals, and we send it to them for them to buy the supplies they need. So in real time, the children see how when we ate less or saved food, put the money into a box, it made a real difference, and we get feedback from those families. And I want to finish with something that President Braun and Chancellor Marcello spoke about, why these convenings happen in this space. Every one of us runs extraordinary missions and organizations, and we could go online and read about each one of your groups, but there's a reason why you're here. You're here because when two people meet, humans interact, it's nuclear energy of good, because we can turn around and start working together and multiply the force of our good actions and find ways to expand it. So we met yesterday with the Women Project. I already spoke to two friends in two major cities that we discussed, and they're interested in bringing and expanding his program to other cities. I can't imagine if every one of you in every city found ways to take ideas and projects, Women could be in 50 cities in a month. And I want to conclude with this story, that in 1968, the first African-American woman to be elected to Congress was Shirley Chisholm. And she wanted to be on the labor committees for education, for labor, and the Southern racists, they purposely put her on the agriculture committee. And the New York Times had a headline, because she was from Brooklyn, where I live, in Crown Heights. There's a headline that said, "Does a tree grow in Brooklyn?" ? They were making fun of her. And the rabbi of the community where I lived, the great Rabbi Schneerson, was the rabbi of her district. And he invited her to meet with her. And he said to her, "I know you're angry." She said, "Of course I'm angry. They're insulting me. I don't have anything to do with agriculture." And the Rebbe said, "They think they're mocking you, but God is actually giving you a privilege. Use this opportunity of being on the agriculture committee to find a creative way to help those that are hungry, because there's so much surplus food in the United States. Help them find a way." She went back to Congress. She met Bob Dole from Kansas, who was then a senator. They started a program to help those that had the surplus farmers that couldn't sell enough product, to make sure that it goes to a program that's expanded food stamps, and eventually, together with Shirley Chisholm and Bob Dole, they started WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, that till today, $7 billion a year feed half of the babies in America. 6-7 million women and babies and children in America, till today, get money from a program that was started because the rabbi told her, be creative. When you're on an agriculture committee, it's not, God wanted you to be there, and in turn, we can find ways to make optimization and utilize all the resources to be able to share to the benefit of all of mankind. Thank you.